Misfits, people ask me all the time about tools that I use in my life and business to maximize my success. I usually start by telling them one of my most powerful tools is my morning habits. And of course, they look at me somewhat confused. I then explain how important it is for me to center myself and how I begin my day and plan for my success. It's critical to consistent high performance. And it doesn't take me long, about 5 or 10 minutes, because I use a great resource called the 5-Minute Journal. The 5-Minute Journal is the simplest, most effective way I've ever found to start your day in the right mindset, doing the right things, and set yourself up for success. And it is exactly what it says, a 5-minute exercise you can do each day. Let me ask you, if you could reach your next level in your life and business by spending just 5 minutes of focused time a day, would you do it? I bet you would. And I know it works because I've experienced the power of it. And you can get your 5-minute journal simply by going to www.misfitentrepreneur.com/journal. That's misfitentrepreneur.com/journal. Do what I do. Use this amazing resource to give yourself an edge in your performance and your success. Get your 5-minute journal today. Hello, Misfit Nation. This is Dave Lucas, and welcome to another episode of the Misfit Entrepreneur, where it is our job to help you unleash your inner misfit and break through to higher levels of success, wealth, and fulfillment by bringing you the best insight and information from the world's top entrepreneurs, with a specific focus on their misfit side, the specific traits, habits, and secrets that have allowed them to thrive and succeed. This week's Misfit Entrepreneur is Anthony Trucks. Anthony is a former NFL player, American Ninja Warrior, best-selling author, and founder of Anthony Trucks Industries and the Shift Method. He's been featured everywhere from NBC, Fox, Netflix, Wall Street Journal, Success, Inc., and so on. Anthony has a heck of a story, from starting out in the foster care system to realizing and then seeing his NFL dream collapse, to starting his own business, losing his marriage and almost his life, but then finding his redemption through a shift. Since the shift, Anthony has become one of the most sought after speakers, coaches, and consultants out there today. And I brought him on to further share his story, what he learned and now teaches from his shift, and to get his best wisdom and advice on how to succeed and live a great life, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a person in this world. So Anthony, are you ready to unleash your inner misfit?
That I am, my man. I like it.
Awesome, man. Well, it's great to have you on, and excited to dig in on this topic today of these shifts that happen in our lives and everything. But
Yeah.
before we really get into that, and this will lead into that, tell us your story, man. You've got just an amazing story of where you came from, everything you went through to get to where you are. So tell us, how'd you do it? How'd you get to where you are?
No, man. I don't know if I'm gonna have the right answer for how, but I can tell you how it happened. I can walk you through the process of it. Because I don't know if we always know how. I think it's always one of those things where hindsight's 2020, but I am not 2020 just yet. But my life started kind of oddly. I was given away at 3 years old into foster care. So me and my three other siblings, so four of us, were essentially just, my mom called foster care and said I can't take care of my kids, and she shipped us off to a very negative environment. Unfortunately, back then, this was 1986. We were what's considered a paycheck, which means as long as we don't die in the system, people get paid for us, and all seems to be right in the world. And so people just didn't take care of us, man. They did everything but have us pass away, unfortunately. So I was starved in some houses, forced to chase chickens to earn meals. I was beaten in some homes, put in shopping carts, pushed down the hills, forced to lick the bottom of people's shoes, like just very heinous stuff by some very unsavory humans, we'll call it. And so it got to the point where it was very shut down little kid. So about like 6 years old, I was like, I don't know what life is. My identity was this sad little kid who didn't have anybody who seemed to care for him. I got really angry, which is kind of, I think, a natural kind of, place for you to go when you're having those experiences take place. And so from 6 years old, an odd thing happened. I was placed into my family, which is now my current family still. The difference was, or unique part of it was, that I was the only Black person in an all-white family. And so I had a lot of diversity issues growing up, identity issues growing up, of like, who am I? Where do I fit? What goes on? And I was with them for 8 years before I was adopted at 14. And so just like a really hectic 8 years. And at 14, got adopted and finally knew this was my home. But I wish life got amazing from there. But we grew up really, really poor, didn't have much. And when I turned 14 and got adopted, like, it wasn't this thing where everything went amazing. Actually, I still, for a lot of years, had a lot of struggle to deal with. My adoptive mom got diagnosed with MS. I tried my first go around of playing football. I was very, very bad at it. I wasn't like all of us, we start out with something and we think it's going to be amazing, and then unfortunately we find that we don't know how to do this, and so we kind of met with this emotional pain of like, oh, I kind of suck at this, and I don't want to do it again. So I checked out, man. I was becoming a statistic. Most people don't know, but in foster care, 75% of our inmates in any prison in America are former foster kids. Half the homeless population would spend time in foster care, and
That's an
like less than
amazing
1%.
stat. That is an
It's
absolutely
weird.
amazing stat.
It's yeah, it's unfortunately amazing. It's odd, but it's the truth, and I get it. Because whenever you have a lot of things that have taken place in your life at the hand of what you see to be the world, the goal for you is retribution. So I fully grasp the reason why a lot of this goes on in the way that it does. And so for me, I somehow beat the odds, and I say somehow, but the reality was I had an adoptive mom who just loved me past my crazy, man. She allowed me to be a vastly different human. So at 15, I had made this choice of like, I don't want to be this horrible loser kid. And so I started kind of changing the way I made my first shift. And it wasn't an intentional one. I was just like, well, I want to not suck at football. So what do I do to not suck at football? And I started figuring out that, I mean, not even intentionally, that you just had to do the things that you didn't want to do or do the things that didn't feel in character. So I started doing all the stuff for football, lifting weights, catching passes, running routes. And you get people that make fun of you, like, what are you doing, man? Trucks, you got butterfingers, you suck. It's all the things that happen because it's new. It's not the things that this guy does. And it's not what a great football player, sorry, sucky football player does. Because honestly, you suck. Why do that? And 7 months later, after enduring day after day of just ridicule and then just going towards a direction that didn't feel comfortable, I showed up the next year an animal. I was a vastly different person inside. I had some more skill sets, to be honest, physically, but the big shift was inside. And I had this, I don't know, this ferocious drive that like you were not going to take what was mine. Like I had done too much in the dark for you to take what was mine in the light. And it was this deep seated drive. And so it turned into me, balling, man. The next year I came, I went from being a freshman, sorry, sophomore, got moved to varsity. I progressed up to get a college scholarship to play at the University of Oregon, and a whole lot of cool things happened. There's a lot of just things happened. I had a kid at 20 years old, and my real dad at 21. Got an opportunity to play in the NFL, which stands for not for long. So you get in, you get hurt, you get out. So my third year, tore my shoulder, came home. I had a massive identity crisis. At this time, I had actually married my high school sweetheart. So my high school sweetheart, we were had the kids together. So we were, stuck together through college. Had a couple of kids after, and then life came tumbling down, man. Because whenever you've been doing something for a long time, you no longer are doing it. It's a big question of who are you without that thing. So if somebody's, lost a relationship, lost a job, even started something on purpose, I decided to start a business or change jobs or whatever it may be, you're still met with the moment of, oh my gosh, I'm not doing that thing anymore. This is new and it's difficult. And so that's how I experienced life. And at one point was suicidal, as you mentioned. It's just like, man, everything that made Anthony was gone at one point. I was a bad dad, marriage fell apart, business was horrible, couldn't play football. And, fast forward what I call the foggy years, probably about at least 4 years of just a fog. My mom passed away, my adoptive mom, from MS. And it was this kind of a wake up call. It's kind of this moment where you can like, go back and go, man, this is a moment in time where I'm realizing how short life is, and I'm not really living the full potential of what I can and what this woman raised me to do. And so it kind of put me in this path, like figure it out. And here's the thing, as much as I would love to say, Dave, that all of a sudden things turned around, like it took me another 2 years to really finally wake up. Because I think that's the reality. It's not
Well, but
this.
that's how it really is.
It really is.
For the grand majority, I mean, it's the turnaround on a dime stories are, they're like a
Dime a
Silicon
dozen.
Valley unicorn. It happens once in a great while, right? So
Yeah.
the what you went through to get to where you're at is what people that achieve their purpose, their potential, their form of greatness have to go through to get there. Um,
True.
it's interesting. I'm a man of faith. I read a lot. I study a
Mm-hmm.
lot. History is a passion for me and everything else. But like, if you've ever read on just like our history as human beings, it's a history of suffering. Like,
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
always.
and that goes back to Adam and Eve and all this other stuff. But anyways, we have to suffer to get through these things, and the suffering is what makes it great in the end. I often say as entrepreneurs, we spend a lot more time in the valleys than we do the peaks. But the peaks
I
are oh
agree.
so sweet, right? The peaks are just so
Yeah,
worth it, right? And
always
so,
are.
and so in your case, you did have like a moment though, like just kind of leading up, looking into more about you and everything. You did have a moment. It was like a almost like an epiphany. You had a conversation that kind of changed your life, and
Yeah.
it set you on your path, right? Because one thing I hear from you, and I think this is really important as we get into the crux of what we're going to talk about is identity today, is like
Hmm.
nobody ever stops back and asks what defines me, and they. At some point, I think this conversation made you do that because you were being defined by outside sources. You weren't defining yourself. So tell us about
True.
it. Tell us what happened, and what was it in that conversation that made you shift and start to turn things around?
So we're gonna go way back in time. It sounds like back to like 15 years old. That
Sure,
was
man. Whatever it
was
was
the
that made you realize, that you could be
oh
more. Because I think it was after you've been through a lot that I think I read you had this conversation with like a friend or something that basically
oh yeah.
looked at you
Hmm.
like a role model and you didn't realize it or something like that, and that really started to make a difference for you.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had a few of those moments in life. So it's funny you ask that because it's the second time in probably the last 3 days someone's actually specifically asked about this moment, and that as a man of faith, I always wonder like what is the reasoning for that. So it's interesting you asked, but it's true. So what ended
It
up
must be
happening?
important.
It must be important, man. And I think a lot of us have those moments in our stories that we don't grasp as important as they truly are. But then they bring themselves to the forefront. And you go, oh, there's something to revisit there. So you need to spend some time and thought or prayer there. But no, like I had this moment where, yeah, like I mentioned, everything came tumbling down. This was before my mom passed away. And so what happened was I had gone through, the NFL, and I come out and I have this humongous bubble of like, I've lost this sense of any kind of confidence in myself because I was the football guy. So no more football when there's no more Anthony. On top of that, I was not being the best dad because what I did is in order to rebuild my sense of confidence, I was like, well, let me just start this business. So I started a gym business with my degree in kinesiology, and I neglected everything else in my life. Like I wasn't a present husband, I wasn't a present father, I didn't take care of my health. Like I just kind of was focused on the business because I wanted to feel great again. And next thing I know, I find my marriage is falling apart. I come to find that my kids don't have a present father. I'm out of shape. Like everything that made me genuinely was all just it was desolate, gone. And what happened was I felt this. I felt like the moments when you're in those places, you don't really like to think about it. You find ways to distract yourself. So I'd focus on work, but to be honest, man, work drained my soul because I had no happy, but I had to give happy all day at this gym. So like I'm pulling from nowhere. And I remember it was just one day on a Saturday, I had went to a UFC fight, and my best friend said like I hadn't moved for like 3 hours. I just sat there and stared at the TV screen. So like, if you know me, I'm not a guy to sit there and not talk or have fun and engage. Like so to me, to be just like in the room, but no one to notice I'm in the room is an abnormal thing. And so my buddy, when I leave this fight at like once it's like 9:30ish at night, I walk outside because I'm leaving, and he stops and goes, "Hey man." I know you got a lot going on, he says, but this is what he says. There's simple words. This is your reality. 4 words, Dave. And those 4 words, man, I don't know if it was a key or something, but it unlocked everything in a sense of I felt the full rush of all pain of everything I've been experiencing like in an instant. It was this thing where like the mind switched in and like in all of it. Cause when you're going through, you try to distract yourself, you try to run from it, and all of it caught me. And it was this emotional pain that was so physical that I quite literally couldn't stop myself from crying. I couldn't stop myself from just, I don't know, I could moving. I was weird. And so like, I wanted to stop. I sent a text to my friends and family, said, please tell my kids that her father was. And I just drove off looking for rat poison. And thankfully, it was like late enough at night where nothing was open that had what I was looking for. I just parked my car somewhere, and during this time I didn't realize, but a lot of people had been spreading the word like where's that, and I drove like an hour away just out of random just driving. And then as somehow the police found me through GPS, nothing had happened. I just kind of parked my car and stopped, and I got home, and I remember having just a pile like 40 people outside of my house all looking for me, and like it was like the hub, and it was this massive wave of shame. And then I remember like it was just this thing where I just want to kind of tuck away. So I just kind of disappeared. And then When it all subsided that night, the moment you're talking about happened 2 days later. You don't know how to go back to life when something like that happens. So I just go
Mm-hmm.
back to life. So I'm back at the gym Monday. I'm just like, well, nothing happened, which obviously did. So one of the guys takes you to the back, Richie. I've known him since high school, played high school football with him. Like we still to this day are good friends. And he takes you in the back. At this time, he had worked at the gym with me. And he goes, Truck, says, first off, never ever in your life do something stupid like that again. And I was like, you're right. And he says, two, when I found out what had happened, he said, I physically threw up in a toilet. I was like, what do you mean threw up in a toilet? He goes, well, I thought I'd lost a hero. And so for me, having like a close friend make that statement, it really like piqued my ears, because in my head, I'm like, bro, I'm nobody's hero. Like I'm just this guy, man. Like, and in fact, I just did something stupid a couple of days ago. He goes, what you need to realize is, although no one talks about it, people know what you've gone through. Like we've seen you climb through what you've gone through. You've gone to the NFL. You're a guy that has kids. Like you take care. You're like, for the most part, you love your kids. I wasn't present, but I love my kids. He says, dude, a lot of people look up to you and what you've accomplished, myself included. And he says you need to just take into account the fact that you've lived a life that people are inspired by. And that was it. That was a seed. It was a conversation. And it's funny thing is, Dave, it wasn't like it changed my life in an immediate sense, like you mentioned before, but it was a seed that got planted, because it was the first time I thought, well, maybe all this craziness of my life has a meaning, which is a question we don't always
Mm-hmm.
ask ourselves enough. We always think about this craziness, oh, I'm doomed, I suck, I'm horrible. But I believe at the end of the day, if you're given problems, there's a reason why you're given problems. And I typically think it's to strengthen you. At this point, I think that. But
Yeah.
I don't think we always are in that present moment. So for me, it was the first time I was like, wow, maybe I'd been accidentally doing something that was helping people. What if I tried on purpose? Now, that was not the time to do it. Like in that moment, in those windows of time there, was not the time for me to start telling people how to live a good life. Like it wasn't the time. However, it did plant a seed for me to start going back and in retrospect say, I wonder what it is about me and what I've done that allowed me to get to at least where I'm at. And that was a seed that got planted that later on got watered.
And that brings us to the really this conversation on identity, right? And I read a quote from you. It said, "Success only happens when you are to your core, your identity aligns with your life's vision." So,
Yeah.
talk about the importance of choosing identity. That to me is the key, right?
Yeah, it
Because
is.
a lot of people just assume an identity and don't choose it. And this goes to conditioning. You and I've talked about that, before ever getting on an episode. But how does
Mm-hmm.
someone go about like aligning their identity to their life's vision? And for that matter, how does someone develop their life's vision and know they have it right?
Yeah, you got a couple different things that are little bubbles
Yeah.
there to talk about. So I fully agree. I think at the end of the day, there's this misconception that identity is something. I mean, there are parts of you have biblical sense of like your identity is already crafted. I get that. But I believe we're also given free will. And I believe the identity is this thing where we do assume it or survive into it. So assuming it means I just, my mom, dad, coach, teacher, boss made me become this person because I had to do these tasks to earn a job, or I've survived something and that becomes my identity. And I don't even consider the fact that I could be different, and we wonder why we fall short of our goals. And the problem is there's certain identities, and each identity does certain things, and those certain things that you do get you certain things in life, and in time you actually align yourself with that. That's why some people, they are their house, they are their car, they are their marriage, because their identity showed up, did some things, built that. Well, that must be who I am, because that's how I was in football. I'm a football guy, right? And what happens is, if the twofold question you ask is, one is how do we align with the vision and create that, and then two, how do we set the identity for it? I think the first thing is, for the vision, I think you have to set your own scale, because the problem is a lot of us, unfortunately, we start setting these intentions towards goals for other people's dreams. It's this, in my family we do this, or I grew up in this area, this is what we have to do, this is the kind of job you have to get. And it's like, no, man, like, in the way the world's connected now, more than any other time in human history, you can do quite literally anything that you want to do. And if you start just adopting something else, you won't even actually attach to it in a way that makes you feel good. You'll do it because you have to. And it's just, it sucks to even get to it. Even if you achieve it, it's not fulfilling. So for me, it's like, set your own scale, sit in a quiet room, sit back and go, what do you want? What does Dave want? What does Anthony want? What does Chris want? What does Sharon want? And actually answer the question. And if you think about what that looks like and what it feels like and what that experience like tastes like, what does that look like? Set the scale for that. And then when you leave that room, let no one tell you it's not good enough. That's your version. That's your vision. And if that's for you, good. So if somebody says, oh, well, I saw you accomplish this, but you didn't do that. Go, I'm glad you see that, 100%. I'm glad you feel that way. But you know what? For me, this is amazing. Like that's going to be a scale you set. Then we start looking at how do we achieve that. Aligning the identity is what allows us to get there. The problem is for a lot of people, they're trying to stay the same but have something different. We want to have the same habits, have the same friends in our we want to react the same way to certain situations. We want to see things a certain way. And we never want to change that. But then we want to have more money or more freedom or more time or more peace. And it's like, well, how do you expect to get anything different doing the same things? And so I look at, well, what if it was a different, kind of person that has what you want? It's typically what it is. The person who has what you want, if you were that person, you would already have those things. It's kind of like human conceptual logic. If I was that person to do that thing, I already have the outcome. So what I came to find in my work was, well, the issue is people don't identify with those actions. They'll try them. They'll do it for a little bit, a day or two. And it's like, it feels out of character. I don't feel like doing this. It's not who I am. I don't feel like doing this. And they stop. So they never get those things. And so what I came to find is, well, what if you could actually find a way to do these things in a manner to where one day you woke up and go, no, I am the person who forgives. I am the person who works hard like this. I am the person who explores new adventures. I am the person who communicates better relationship. It is who I am to do that. Well, if it's who you are to do it, you'll actually do the things because you want to live in alignment with who you are. And if you do those things, well, lo and behold, you have that thing you want. So in a roundabout way, it's kind of this perspective of thinking through identity in a sense of your identity is the actions that you take without thinking about the actions that you take. And they become fluid and easy and in flow. And if those align easily and smoothly with the vision you have, well, now whatever you want becomes yours.
It's amazing when you explain it that way, and you do such a good job of it. It seems so simple, but it's not. It's constant work and it's lifelong work, and it never ends. In fact,
Yeah.
there is as just coming in today. It's just timely. There is probably one of the best examples of this topic. I want to take a quick 1 minute break. I want to come back and dig into it because I think it's going to be a longer conversation. And I'm kind of torn on it, right? In some ways, my thoughts on it might be a little bit controversial. So I'm interested to hear what you think. But let's do that. I'm going to take a 1 minute break. We're going to come back and we're going to get into this. Misfits, what does making a living mean to you? Every entrepreneur answers this question differently, and we want to hear them all. That's why I want to tell you about a new podcast produced and sponsored by FreshBooks, the friendly accounting software that serves millions of small businesses, including me here at the Misfit Entrepreneur. The show is called I Make a Living, and it's where you can hear today's most successful entrepreneurs talk candidly with host Damana Hoffman about how they've shaped their careers. Guests include smart passive income founder and podcaster Pat Flynn, poet and author Morgan Harper Nichols, HGTV celebrity Brian Baimler, and many others. One of the things that I really like is in addition to the main episodes, they sprinkle in these mini-sodes that they call nerdisodes, where they nerd out on a specific hot topic like SEO, imposter syndrome, work-life balance, etc. I Make a Living is definitely a show that you want to check out. Just go to freshbooks.com/podcast or search I Make a Living on any podcast platform that you are using right now. Enjoy! Okay, so Anthony, before the break, I talked about there's an example out there right now that is just like at least in my face or in your face for this topic that we're discussing, right? So we're doing this interview right now in the midst of the Olympics. And Simone Biles, the heavy gold favorite, arguably one of, if not the greatest gymnast of all time, just exited the games for mental health reasons. And I cannot help but think that this has to do with her identity at this time being misaligned. How do you see it?
It's tough, man. I look at both sides of the discussion. The problem in our culture you have is cancel culture. So if you don't go along with the standard norm, then you're ostracized, right? And you're a horrible person. And then on top of that, it's like you're insensitive. But then it's like there's certain parts where like a discussion needs to be had because I don't think that this can be. We wouldn't be able to survive as a society if the norm was to do these actions she's taking. The reasons why it's up for debate of what's going on. So I believe
That's why I'm torn on this, man. Because if Tom
yeah.
Brady at halftime in the Super Bowl said, "You know what, guys, the pressure is too much. I'm walking out," and he leaves the stadium, I just don't think the reaction would be the same.
No, it wouldn't be. And there's a lot. I mean, so the thing is, whenever you have these things, everybody right now, because it's a common discussion, every news station, media person, their job is to find a new angle and talk about it. And I don't even know if all the people that talk about it believe what they're talking about. It's very interesting to watch people like go to bat on one side hard. And it's like, I don't even know if I'm feeling like this is the same person talking about it. The way that I look at it is we are a society where we have, we are told every day it's going to be hard, it's going to be hard, and athletes put ourselves in positions to do hard things consistently. It actually becomes an identity of who you are, right? This is who I am, and I get the perspective of, if there's something wrong with you and you're going to do damage to the people around you. In her head at that moment, she believed that she was, a liability to her team. So I get the reason why she would, from a liability standpoint. I think there's a deeper discussion on like the invisible injury of like, is it, what is too much? Like, what is the tipping point? Because you're right, Tom Brady and these
Right.
people, if you're the best at the top of your game, like when my kids, want to do gymnastics and I sit there and go, it's really, let's work real hard. And they go, well, it was hard for Simone Biles and she quit. It's like, oh man, well, what do I tell my
I
daughter
know.
now? So I get that perspective, but I don't know. Part of it, I believe, does become an identity issue because the struggle is it's who she is. So she's going to have a harder fight whenever this all subsides and the emotion dissipates, the Olympics are over. She's going to look in the mirror and go, who am I? Am I really this person? Like,
Right.
if that's the case, and what does it mean? And she can, I'm telling you, you can say all the words you want. When you're private and alone in your own dark thoughts, man, especially when, I guess, mental issues going on, that's going to be a scary place. And I think people need to keep a really close eye on her just because you never know. Because when you're now out of alignment with who you are as an identity, it becomes a really tough battle. It's one that only you can fight. You can't have people can't pop into your head and tell you things, right? It's a very scary place to be. And I don't think the actions she took have to do, it's all, I don't think they have to do with her identity. If anything, I think it's out of character. It's
Right.
out of the identity. And here's the thing, I think it is that way, in my opinion, because whenever you look at the 50,000-foot view of this whole situation, the fact that it's such a large discussion should tell you there is something off about it. That's it. Like whatever is actually off, I don't know. But the reality that this is such a huge discussion tells you, hey, in our norms of society, there's something a little bit going on when the face of the Olympics for our country decides it's too hard for me to do it. And so like that's
Mhm.
something to look into, man. Now there's extenuating circumstances that go into the part of, they're isolated, they can't talk to each other. That's part of the identity also, is to be at the Olympic Gardens, to hang out with your people, to be there. That's part of who you are. It's part of the experience, it's part of the environment. I get that. But yeah, I don't know, because then where people are saying, well, if she knew she shouldn't have went, well, did she know? Like,
Yeah.
did she
Well,
not know? Like, I don't
well,
I don't
and
know.
that's the other thing too. Is like, look, I get it. And that's why I said I'm torn because you know, you've been at the biggest stage in the world. You know what the pressure's
Mm-hmm.
like. You know, I
Yeah,
I've you know I've been on pretty big stages and had the pressure and fought through it. To
yeah,
perform and make sure that I'm doing the best I can. And we all have off days. Like, I mean, I was, a great ball player and played through college and stuff, but I've had bad games. I've had bad races in track. Everybody's had those days, but that you don't
yeah.
walk away. You use that to fuel yourself to the next level.
That's
So
the thing.
it's
That's the thing that I look at.
yeah, it,
Exactly.
it's it is
It's
hard for me to understand the mental side of this because you are that's what you should be most prepared for going into something like this, like the Olympics. You know what I mean? This is what you've done.
yeah.
You're one of a few people in the history of the human race to be able to do this. This is what you've literally prepared for your entire life. Now, granted, you've already won and done it all, right? So this is
Mm-hmm.
like the next time around. Maybe pressure should be off, honestly, but it's on. It seems like it's more for her, and if she really has true mental issues, she should be on a plane back home to the United States right now getting the help she deserves. She shouldn't be sitting there smiling on the sidelines and stuff like that. It just doesn't, to me,
Yeah.
that doesn't sit right?
It's an odd
So,
dynamic. It's
yeah,
very the same. In my household, the way I look at it is like if this happened and my son or daughter did that, I'm like you in a sense of like, look, at the end of the day, in order for us to be able to function at a higher level in this world, it's like think about a weight room, man. I got to go in there and lift the heaviest weights to get the strongest. That's the goal. And so if I want to get strong, I can't all of a sudden when the weight gets too heavy decide never to touch the weight. So it's like
Yeah.
you put yourself in a position like this is now a moment where yes, you can utilize it as strength. That's just what I look at. And the funny thing is, all of society, all the time, and all the years has always said this: do hard things to get stronger. Do hard. Put yourself in situations. Push yourself to be better. You'll get stronger. And then we do that, and then somebody backs out, and we go, "Oh, it's okay. It was too hard." It's
Yeah,
like, "Oh, all
but
right."
that shift's been changing. I think the shift has been happening. Use the word shift, right? It's been happening for a while. I mean, when you came up, when I came up, and a lot's changed, right? Like back when
Yeah,
I played youth football, they had just introduced air helmets. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's true.
So like
Yeah, no
nowadays,
pumps.
all the concussion stuff, everything else, right? So hopefully don't have issues later in life, knock on wood. But like,
Hmm.
um, you know, look, you won or lost. You did. Not everybody got a trophy. You know that that
Hmm.
and that there's been that change, and some of the stuff around it is good from helping people to be more inclusive in some ways, to bring them into sport or bring them into things. But I think it also can be debilitating to basically let them know that it's fine. You can just give up and it's okay, right? And I
Yeah,
think
it's hard. It's hard.
it's an edge that we used to have as human beings and stuff that we're slowly losing. And I don't know how that'll affect us. And to entrepreneurship,
Yeah, no, do I.
as entrepreneurs, we can't lose that edge. It's that edge that keeps us pushing and driving and reaching the next level. The minute we lose it, that's the minute that we start to decline from an entrepreneur
Yeah,
standpoint, for sure, right?
100% in
So
all aspects.
yeah,
Every parenting. Imagine if a mom was all of a sudden like, "This thing's too hard. Scratch these kids." You know, it's like you can't do that, and it's the weird part of it all. Is like you are right. Our world's been slowly guiding this way, and all we could do is do in our own households, man. We do things. We have conversations. We talk. My wife works with special needs, so I
mm,
am very close to the mental issues and the spectrum of it all. So 1,000%, I grasp that there's a spectrum of mental issues that go on. But the thing that I look at is a lot of these individuals, they're not supposed to work on it. It's just they have regular everyday jobs. They do their thing, right? But when you're an Olympic athlete, that you don't, it's known you train your mind and body. So like, did somebody drop the ball in the training? That's the question I ask. And then the thing overarching is like, it does. It's very pervasive to society because now what I look at is a lot. Here's the thing. This is going to be maybe controversial, maybe not. A lot of the people that I see that have went to bat and said, I'm disgusted by how people are outing her and saying this. I've seen a lot of individuals who in my head, I'm like, I know you've quitted stuff. So the way you're doing this is almost like you're wanting it to be okay, to be accepted for her, in a space for the quitting to take place so that you may feel less negative as you
right.
felt. So it's almost like her going down lets you feel like, oh, okay, see, she did it. I'm not so bad. And you can sleep better at night. And that's where I'm like, ooh, I don't know if that's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be the case. Cause I feel like some people are now using this as a crutch for themselves.
Yeah, I think there's some great lessons to learn from it. I hope she gets through this and gets back on her game for the future. I mean, most likely she's probably going to retire after this, but she's got the world her oyster, man. She can create gyms. You can build a massive business around everything she has done and who she
Oh,
is and
yes, you
what she
can.
knows. And I hope that if that's what she wants, that she ultimately can do that and pick herself up and she gets the help she needs.
Hmm.
It's something that I think we as entrepreneurs, as a society, have to watch and be conscious of, and have to figure out in our own lives when we reach those times, when we reach the times of the pressure, when we reach these moments to where we're misaligned with our identity, as you would say, that we have the courage to bring our identity back in line,
Hmm.
and do the hard things to do that, right
That's
now.
it's same as you said before. It's realignment, man. It's just, can
Yeah,
I realign myself? Here's the thing. It's never the end. Like she can easily, in my opinion, even she can fix
step
all
back
this.
out
She
tomorrow.
she can, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that maybe not going to happen, but like you can
Yeah,
try it again. You can come back out and you can do the world. Like you can do things. But the thing is great is there's never like the end. You can't fix it. It may
right.
be harder, but you could just go back and be like, hey, here's some things that took place. I'm owning however it may be, but I'm gonna do the work. And you can grind yourself and work yourself into the new identity. It's just going to be a matter of, you got to set the alignment with, where do I want to go? What am I
Yeah.
facing? And you have to do the work to make that shift. And there's ways you go deep into it, but that's genuinely what it turns into. Is you have to understand how to go through the steps, like the method, the model, to shift yourself, honestly, just proactively.
Now, is there, you kind of said the steps, the method, the model. Is there, I mean, I hate to say, is there like a 7-step plan to your identity? But like,
There
are
is.
there certain things that people can maybe take that you've learned and start acting on today that can put them on the right path to this?
Yeah, man. There's actually 3 steps. We have a coaching model it's called the Shift Method, and it's exactly designed for what we're talking about here. Because I found throughout my life, and I was like, well, this is great, and I can do it. But then what if I could give this to other people and say, hey, follow this and do this, and you'll be able to have your own kind of tool in your back pocket to make shifts, whatever you desire, right? And so the 3 steps are pretty, at face value, they're going to be simple, but the depth is where actually the change and transformation takes place. But it's 3 steps. It's called see, shift, and sustain. The best way to explain these three is kind of like looking at, we're talking about athletes getting in the zone. You know, like, you ever heard it before, get in the zone?
Oh
I'm
yeah,
assuming you have.
oh yeah.
Yeah. So the zone's a space where you're like, you're impenetrable, man. Like, nothing can touch. Like Michael Phelps, when he was winning those goals, he was
You
in the
can
zone,
see
dude.
people in the zone when they're out of the zone.
You see it.
Simone right now is out of the zone, but
Yeah. You
but
notice it.
the girl who stepped up, Suni Lee, who won the gold yesterday,
Yeah.
she's in the zone. You know what I mean?
She's in the zone.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's that space where you're confident, you're in flow, things are right. You can say what you need to say. Everything seems to be going smooth and right. That's the zone. And you don't have to be an athlete to get there. It can happen when you're running your business. It can happen as an entrepreneur. It can happen as a mom. It doesn't matter. And what I've found is there's 3 stages to work yourself into the zone of the ideal or the new identity you want. Because that identity is a zone identity. Nobody says, I want to be an identity that's lazy. and and is not happy, right? The identity is like, I want to be the one that's firing on all cylinders. And so what I've noticed is there's these steps. And what it is you first have to do what's called C, or what I say is find your zone lags. Most people never take a look at who they really are. Therefore, they never figure out what they really need to work on. They're really quick to go to the next stage and start doing work, right? Borrowing habits, trying new things, adjust some things in life. But then they end up finding out later on, like, I have been doing a bunch of work and I'm drained, but I'm still broken inside. What is going on? And it's because, well, you didn't figure out where the actual holes in your bucket were to fill them, so you just kept leaking. So the C phase is finding out your specific areas that you've got to work on. There are a lot of processes and ways to do this, but there'll be a point in time when you go, oh man, I don't like the fact that this is what I got to work on, but I'm aware of it. All right, let me work on this. Right, but there's a process to doing that. The next stage is what I call a personalized shift plan. It's that shift phase, because we're talking about shifts, and that's where the work. I have loved the statement is action ends suffering. Period. There's action will end the suffering, no matter what it is, in some way. And it may be multiple actions. It may be some harder ones, right? But that's what you can't sit there still and hope your life will change, right? So the idea is to figure out what the actions are from the zone lags, and then put a plan in place that allows you to do those things. And it's got to be unique to you, because if not, you will end up in the same place you're at now with just more work expelled, more money out, and no progress. So the thing is a personalized, unique to you shift plan. And the third piece is what I call a discipline system. Most people will find out what they got to work on, right? Then they'll take some actions, and then they're met very quickly with the fact that, oh, this doesn't feel in character. And I'm like, well, yeah, because that's not the character you had. You're trying to build a new character, to be honest. Like, so of course it feels awkward. But most people go, oh, this feels out of character. And then they find really good and creative ways to make excuses to remove themselves from difficult situations, right? I don't have time, or I don't have money, or I tried, but it just wasn't for me. It's like, well, it's very interesting, right? It feels good. Now you can breathe a little bit, go back to your old life and wonder why you aren't where you're at. So for me, the discipline system is something that's got to be in place and unique. But here's the thing, it's not going to happen because you're emotionally engaged every moment of the day. That's why discipline is a key word, because there's going to be days you wake up and go, I don't feel like doing that thing to become that person today. And that's okay, man. It's not always going to feel great, but the idea is give a system around your life that allows you to not stop. Because what happens is a beautiful thing when you get to the real space of making a shift. Dave, have you ever been at a point like at a restaurant, or sorry, maybe a Starbucks or a coffee shop, where you sit down and for the first like couple minutes you're supposed to work, you're like scrolling through your phone, looking at people, and all of a sudden you go, oh, I just gotta focus, and you put your head down? You ever noticed
Yeah.
that before?
Oh yeah.
And
Or
then, and
shoot,
then, yeah, and then,
even at my own desk in my office.
yeah, me too. First 5 minutes for me are like, oh, I'm trying to focus. Then all of a sudden, 2 hours later, I pop my head up like, where'd the time go? It's like, what in the world? Like, it just time disappeared. That is how a shift takes place. There's not a moment you can recall of when you got focused. There's not a moment of when it all settled in, but it's that discipline system where you put your head down for a day, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, but you pop up 6 months, 9 months, a year later and go, holy crap, look at this cool life. I'm in better shape. I've been going to the gym and you're living your life, but you haven't stopped to really resonate with it. But then at some point you look back and you go, man, I don't even feel like the person I used to be. That is what we're looking for.
You know, two things that and I love that, by the way. Two things that I take from those three steps you took that resonate across people that come on the show and have for years, right? And there's these things I've identified, right? These patterns, right? These things that are consistent across guests like you that come on the show. One of them is the long game, right?
Mm-hmm.
We live in an instant society. I often say we stop the microwave with 3 seconds left. We can't even wait 3 seconds anymore. And
Yeah.
so it's hard to take the long view and look at things from the long term, but it is absolutely true. People overestimate what they can accomplish in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. And so you have to
Mm-hmm.
take the long term view. And then the second thing is, I've developed this formula over the years that I call DCP. And your third step, we're talking really digging into that, and what DCP stands for is discipline, consistency, and persistence or perseverance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because you hear those three things, and they're needed to succeed. And you're like, duh. But what are they, right? Discipline is doing the things that you know you need to do even when you don't want to do them.
Yep.
Consistency is doing that day in and day out without fail. And even if you're disciplined and consistent, you're going to hit walls. You're going to hit plateaus.
Yeah.
And it's at those times that if you're not willing to persist or persevere through them, that's where you'll stagnate. That's where you'll stop.
Mm-hmm.
And
True.
so it's really that's a lot of what you just described. So it's amazing to kind of see the kind of the synergy between those things that have been running themes on this show forever from people like yourself and how they are so consistent.
Well,
So thanks
it's
for
human
yeah,
psychology. If you think about it, the
it
reason
is.
it's consistent is because humans are fairly consistent beings, and we're looking for some new trick or pizzazz thing, and it's like, dude, everybody keeps saying the
Been
same
there.
thing in different ways, and maybe, but at the same time, if we all want to go to the concert, we might have to find different, different directions based on where we're starting. I think that is the nuance. You have to find somebody who resonates with the vehicle you want to get into and is starting at a similar place, right? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
That's what I think when you hear the same people, it's like someone may go, I heard so and so say that. But maybe me and the last five people you've heard are not the person, but that sixth person, maybe they say something and finally goes, wow, I get it. And somebody else goes, well, yeah, they said it before. Yeah, but this person just said it differently. And that's what you want. So I love you're doing what you're doing because that is correct. Like the people that listen to the show, I'm sure like some of them have got that boom hit, and some are like, when am I going to
Yeah.
get that? And I might have been the guy. Somebody else might be the guy or girl, right?
Right.
But that's the thing is humans, we are fairly consistent. So if you find that what's going on, like just
Always,
listen and pay attention.
I've always believed a student arrives when they're ready, right? And so that's kind
True.
of what you're saying is that's what happens. When it's time, it all of a sudden it clicks, and the messenger can be, well, it can be any multitude of things that comes from, but it's there and it
Mm-hmm.
will happen at some point. Getting to the end of our time together, and I'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about about your entrepreneur journey too, as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about your experience as an entrepreneur. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned, both from like your failures in business and your successes, that you think are important for people to know?
Man, at the end of the day, I think the thing is, it's supposed to be a journey of predictable failure. It sounds odd at that face value, I just realized, but it's like a process I look at. People say, well, entrepreneurship is failure. And it is. It's a back and forth, consistent game, but there's actually levels to it. And in my experience, man, what I've noticed, it's a journey of trying to figure out which failures are like end alls and which ones are supposed to be things that take place that you learn from on purpose, right? So when like the business fails, some people go, oh, see, I'm not supposed to be in business. And then I go, okay, oh, I failed. Why did I fail? Why, business is supposed to fail. What was the thing that messed this up this time? Okay, cool. I won't do it next time. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
this consistent thought of like everything I'm doing, is dialed in. And if we go in that same realm, dude, I've noticed like an entrepreneur is an identity. There's an actual identity attached to who I am and all of us and the way we see things. It's just whenever you're operating a certain way, it's a matter of like, this is who I am. And so how do I consistently stay in this zone and do that? But the journey for me, man, has been incredibly difficult, incredibly rewarding. I've lost everything, quite literally. I've lost my family. I've lost, my kids. I've lost almost my life, like to the journey of trying to build a business, and then I've gained everything: the freedom, the time, the control, the impact, fulfillment. I mean, I can't think of anything on this planet I am more suited for than doing what it is that I do, like speaking, talking, coaching as an entrepreneur. I've thought of it actually in the last few years. I'm like, you can't put me behind a counter somewhere. I wouldn't do very well. I'd be like that caged lion, right? There's just certain things. And so for me, I think the journey of entrepreneurship has been one that's incredibly, it's a microcosm of I want to say like human experience, man. It's a small, area, but like I've experienced the highs, the lows, the loves, the joy, the pain, all of that. And I wouldn't trade it for anything, man. I think that the cool part about life is experiences. People ask me, like, what's the meaning of life? I'm like, man, I think it's just to have more cool experiences than bad experiences. Cause that's all everything we do, we can attach down to it's just an experience. So if I can have the bad ones that make the good ones sweeter, great. If I can have more of the good ones, that's what I want to have. But I think that's really what I'm focused on, and how I see entrepreneurship as, man, just a way to live life and engage in experiences.
Man, that's a great way to end it before we get to your Misfit 3. And so, on that, we're going to do it. We're going to take just one more 1 minute break and move right back with Anthony's Misfit 3. Misfit entrepreneurs, I want to take a quick moment to tell you about a free resource I've created for you. After interviewing hundreds of the top entrepreneurs in their fields throughout the world, as well as looking at my own experience, I asked a simple question. What are the top most important lessons, habits, and traits that successful entrepreneurs practice? It was a really hard exercise as there are so many things, but I wanted to find the ones that were the most consistent across these amazing people. I started with about 30 lessons and narrowed them down to the top 10 and put it into a free ebook for you. It's called The Top 10 Lessons to Thrive and Succeed. The book shares each lesson with concrete examples and action steps of how you can implement them in your life. To get it, all you have to do is go to www.misfitentrepreneur.com/lessons. That's www.misfitentrepreneur.com/lessons. The lessons are proven to work time and time again, and my goal is for you to be able to use them to help you reach your next level in your life and your entrepreneur journey. So go out, grab your copy, and feel free to send me a note, as I'd love to hear your feedback and which lesson is your favorite. Here's to your success. Okay, it's time for Anthony's Misfit 3. These are the 3 things that he wants you to take away from him that you can take and put in your life, your business, make a difference for yourself starting today. And the way that I always frame this to every guest that comes on the show is I say, hey, look, if you were going to leave this earth tomorrow and you could only leave behind your 3 best pieces of wisdom for the generations that come after you to help them live their best life, what would those be? So, Anthony, what are your Misfit 3?
Now, one of them is one that was told to me, but I live by, and I think we really got to settle into this and feel this, right? But here's what it is: the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. And the reason I say that's because there's this level where we talk about never settling, um, you know, never stopping your whole process. And people say that, but then they do it and they stop. For me, I'm consistently trying to find out how to be better as a dad, as a husband, as a coach, as just a person on this planet. And I'm never going to get to the point where I say I'm good. I've mastered that. I don't want to be quite honest. I love the process of learning. Like I love that journey. So it's like really the biggest room in the world is a room for improvement. The second one for me is a matter of like how I live life. And there's a statement that I live by in a certain way too. It's funny. These are all statements I say, but I actually live by them. But I live by the statement of fall in love with the day, not just the destination. There are vastly too many people that wake up every day in constant awareness of how far they are from the place they want to be. And I think it hinders the ability to enjoy the journey, man. So what ends up happening is we're only focused on the destination, and we lose sight of the fact that that will come. The destinations will come, and they'll come with more joy, and they'll come faster and in more abundance if you simply fall in love with the day, man. Try to find the joys in the little things. Even if you don't like that thing, try to find something you like within that thing, because when you do, you'll do it and you'll get the end result you're looking for in the first place. And when you get it, it'll be like, oh man, the whole process to get here was amazing. And you know what? It's even more amazing when I got here. Like, nothing's bad. So fall in love with the day, not just the destination. And the last one's a quote that I created in college, and it was an accident, but I think it settled like my mind in terms of how I show up every day. And here's the quote: there are two types of people in this world: those that work, and those that watch. Make sure you bow for your audience. And the idea behind that was, there's going to be people that have great ideas and they do a lot of stuff, and and I fall in love with the day, right? But there's some people that they're not in love with working. And so for me, it's like there are people that work and those that watch them work, and they point fingers and all that kind of fun stuff, right? It's the whole the man in the arena kind of thought. But for me, it's like, man, I want to make sure that I never have a concept of I'm in the audience, man. I want to be the guy out there doing the work and enjoying it. And I'm going to make sure I bow for that audience that's watching me.
Anthony, that's an awesome Misfit 3, man. All those are timeless, can be used across all areas of life. Thank you for sharing those. If people do want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Man, if they go to Anthony Trucks on Instagram, it's a great place. I got a book coming out August 24th. You go to identityshiftbook.com and use the code ME, Misfit Entrepreneur, right? That's your little code special.
Mm-hmm.
Then the first 10 people to use that code, I'll sign an autograph book and send it to them. And they'll get a second book. Everybody else, including them, will actually get the audiobook, a digital book, and a workbook that takes my best coaching like modules and weaves it into a workbook to guide them through making their own identity shift, like we've been talking about this whole time.
Dude, that's awesome. We'll link to all that in the show notes there. We can find it the best show notes in the business for reasons I'll talk about more in a second. But first, for those of you that are new to Misfit Nation, welcome. It is such an honor to have you with us, and I hope you become a regular listener and a subscriber. And for all of you that are with us week in and week out, I cannot thank you enough for your support of the show. You are what makes this go in over 150 countries every single week. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And then, make sure and go out and check out those show notes for this episode. They are the best in the business. Why? Because I do them myself as part of my personal growth routine. I set time aside where every week where I sit down, I go back through these episodes and I take my best insights and pieces of wisdom and things that I'm taking away from people like Anthony, and then I share them with you. So check those out. And then go out and give this episode a rating and review. Help share Anthony's message, because we all know, and I say this in every episode, one great episode can change someone's life. Maybe something that Anthony shared was that missing link that you were looking for to get to your next level today. So share this with others. And again, Anthony, thank you so much for coming on, sharing all your wisdom and insight today.
Welcome, man. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for attending this episode of The Misfit Entrepreneur. We look forward to seeing you in further episodes. If you haven't done so, make sure you definitely check out the Misfit Minute. You can access it right from our site. Every Friday, you get some of the best tips and tricks from some of the top Misfit entrepreneurs out there doing their thing. We look forward to seeing you in next week's edition. And in the meantime, have some fun.